Robert Saleh is his return imminent to the San Francisco 49ers sideline as defensive coordinator. It is starting to look that way with all the schadenfreude going on with the Jacksonville Jaguars today. We'll get into it on today's Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker with you as always at BD Peacock at Crocky209. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Love the everydayers out there, and welcome to the new listeners. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you can hang out with us every day throughout the offseason. We start breaking down the NFL draft even further, build our draft board, talk free agency, and no shortage of storylines. And today was a really good one as it pertains to the San Francisco 49ers and the NFL. The script writers off to a great start so far in 2025. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code Locked On NFL for $20 off your first ticket purchase. Before we get to Robert Saleh, I just want to lay it out there for those folks who aren't following along and what happened on Thursday evening as we're getting information about what's going on with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Robert Saleh was supposed to be on a plane. He reportedly landed on that plane in Jacksonville to get ready for his Friday morning interview, second interview as head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. But apparently, secretly behind the scenes, after firing Trent Baalke, the Jacksonville Jaguars have been still chatting it up with the last guy they interviewed in Liam Coen. And apparently, according to Mike Silver, Robert Saleh actually was not on that plane because he's waiting to see what happens there with what's going on in Jacksonville. So Robert Saleh not traveling to Jacksonville Thursday evening. And also, according to Mike Silver, it is now expected that Robert Saleh is going to return and take the job as defensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers. Before I get your thoughts again, Croc, on Robert Saleh, and we'll talk a lot about Saleh and what he brings to the 49ers and I mean, really the one and only option for Kyle Shanahan this offseason for defensive coordinator. It looks like that is going to happen for the San Francisco 49ers, which is fantastic news for everybody involved. I want to go to this report really quick because it is unbelievable what happened with the Jacksonville Jaguars today. And Rick Stroud, who covers the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because the report yesterday, remember, Croc, was Liam Coen declined to further interview and took his name out of the running for the Jacksonville Jaguars head coach job and was going to sign to be the highest paid offensive coordinator in the league with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and stay there. Rick Stroud, who covers the Bucs, said just about an hour before recording this pod, he said, to be clear, Liam Coen contacted head coach Todd Bowles around 5 p.m. Thursday Eastern time. He said he had been with one of his kids who had taken ill at a doctor's office. He mentioned the Jaguars situation only briefly, saying he wanted to look back into it. And Albert Breer goes in more detail about the Liam Coen situation, saying the Buccaneers offered a 3-year deal on Monday to make their offensive coordinator the highest paid coordinator in NFL history, but it was contingent on him not taking the second interview with the Jaguars, which is the reason for the secrecy on Cohen's part, because he still wanted to have that really nice contract backup plan, but still did want to talk to the Jacksonville Jaguars, apparently. And part of the Baalke firing, if we're reading between the lines here, is because Liam Coen probably didn't want to be tied to that job with Trent Baalke. And so now we know why Baalke was fired there and let go as GM of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Who will be that player or that GM that comes in with Liam Coen now, assuming Liam Coen gets the job? I don't know, but according to Breer, one thing's clear, he's not going to be offensive coordinator of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, even if he doesn't get the Jacksonville Jaguars job. And so I don't know if bridges are burnt there as well as with Robert Saleh, even if it falls through with Liam Coen, but it's looking like Liam Coen is going to be head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. The assistant GM, by the way, Croc, and by the way, everybody listening, Croc is going to speak in a minute. I'm just trying to lay this all out there so everybody knows the score and knows what's going on, and I'm fascinated by it. Before we can have opinions on it, we even have to figure out what's going on. On Thursday morning, the Las Vegas Raiders had already announced that they had hired Buccaneers assistant GM John Spytek to their GM role. So if that was the guy that Liam Coen wanted to bring with him to Jacksonville, well, he's off the table now too. And I wonder if he was like, well, Liam Cohen's not going there, so I'm going to go take this other job instead of going with Liam Coen, because a lot of times it's a package deal with GM and head coach. So further muddies the situation, I think, for me, as you try to figure out what's going on and who's going where and the connections that bring coaches and GMs together around the NFL. But man, we're off to a banging start here in 2025 offseason, but the bottom line here is, with all of this going on with the Jacksonville Jaguars and maybe some ineptitude on their part, good news for the San Francisco 49ers. If they get their man, and it's looking like Robert Saleh is coming home, and he will be the defensive coordinator once again for the San Francisco 49ers, Croc.
I was looking forward to potentially having a fresh face and somebody who has kind of some new ideas and in a way that the 49ers can like somewhat be some kind of innovative on defense, right? The 49ers have had a lot of success throughout the Kyle Shanahan tenure, but there's been a lot of ups and there's been a lot of downs. 4 winning seasons, and those are great winning seasons, going to conference championship games or Super Bowl, or just really falling flat. And there hasn't been no in between. And I was wondering, like, all right, what's going to take to put the 49ers over the top? Like, what's going to put the 49ers over that hump? And I think kind of shaking things up a little bit and doing something a little bit different than you have done things. And maybe they think, the way we've done things, and when we're healthy enough, get into that high level, we can win that Super Bowl. But I was looking for them to do something that allows them to take that next step. And I think Robert Saleh definitely adds this comfortability to the coordinating position. Obviously, not just knowing Kyle Shanahan, but knowing a lot of those players. There's a lot of players that were with Robert Saleh from the 2019 Super Bowl on that defense. I say a lot, but just some of the key guys with Fred Warner and Nick Bosa. I like it, and I think that's the easy thing to do, but I don't quite love it.
I love it from a standpoint of the best possible option for the San Francisco 49ers. Robert Saleh had this.
Wait. That's the best possible answer that they pursued.
That they were going to, they didn't have any other answers. They weren't interviewing other people, right? And so,
well, that's my thing. That's where my issue is. Like, you didn't look outside at all. And again, I love Robert Saleh. Like, I think he's a terrific guy. But my thing is that, okay, how do you get the 49ers over the hump? Is it Robert Saleh? Right? It may be, but I want to see the 49ers really do something to kind of shake things up a little bit to really take that next step. And I think Robert Saleh, he is a solid coach. I don't think it's a bad hire at all. But the fact that, like, that's the one guy that they wanted, and they didn't look outside at all to do something somewhat different, to change some of the outcomes that the 49ers have had. I just would have liked to see them just use a little bit more resources towards some guys that, again, may just bring a fresh thought to what they're doing. And they took the easy way out. I like it. I like Robert Saleh. I think Robert Saleh is a hell of a coach. I just would have liked to see something like, okay, yeah, we have that in your pocket. Hey, we can always get Robert Saleh. Like, we want Robert Saleh. Cool. Can I look into some other guys that may kind of potentially blow us away? And they're like, we don't even care about anybody else. We're all in on Saleh. Not a terrible approach, but I just would have done it just a little differently.
One thing's for sure, they know they got a good coach. They know they got a good coordinator. They got an NFL legit defensive coordinator in 2025. And, hopefully we don't go through this dance again next year with Robert Saleh if he does an amazing job getting all these head coach interviews, because he interviewed with almost every single team. And by the way, this is not a done deal yet either. So we might wake up on Friday morning with even more news to shake this all up, because we already thought it was going one direction today, and that got flipped on its head. So we'll find out there. Croc, next, I want to talk about why it will absolutely be different with Robert Saleh, the 49ers defense in 2025 than it was when he left in 2020. Next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by PrizePicks, it's playoff time, and if you're like me, you want to make the most of these final weeks of football action. Only 3 games left in the NFL season. That's where PrizePicks comes in. If you love football and you want a chance to win real money while watching the games, PrizePicks is the place for you. It's the best place to turn around your sports opinions into cash with daily fantasy player projections. And if you've never played PrizePicks, it's super easy. You simply pick more or less on player stats like total passing yards or rushing touchdowns for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your money. You can make your picks in less than 60 seconds, and whether you're looking to flex play and boost your payout or you just want to cash out quickly, PrizePicks has got you covered. We're talking over 10 million members at PrizePicks and billions in winning. It's clear that people are loving the platform. And by the way, when you're playing PrizePicks, you're not playing against the other million members, 10 million members. You're not playing against some potential sharks in the pool like some other sites and some other games out there. It's just you against those stat projections at PrizePicks. For example, you like Saquon Barkley for more than 1 touchdown, or you like Jaden Daniels, or you like look, I would love for Jaden Daniels or Josh Allen to be going more than on their total passing yards at PrizePicks. And here's a special offer for our Locked On listeners. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's PrizePicks. Run your game.
So, Peacock, while you're reading the ad, there were a couple updates that dropped from Matt Mayoko. Shout out to Matt Mayoko, NBCS. All right, and he says, Robert Saleh is in line to be the 49ers defensive coordinator, sources says, unless he ends up with a head coaching position. If he is a defensive coordinator this season, it will be with the 49ers, he told the team. So basically he's saying, hey, if I'm DC, if I don't get a head coaching job, I am all in with you. But the 49ers, I still feel like put all their eggs in that basket, right? If there were any interviews that were happening with the 49ers and the defensive coordinator position, it would be, everybody would know, right? Nick Sorensen was fired. Hey, these coaches have interviewed with the 49ers for a defensive coordinator position. And all along, it's just like, nope, Saleh's our guy. And it's like, well, what if Saleh does get a head coaching job? Then what do you do? So I know there are some people in the chat. I've been reading the comments, and they're like, well, if you get a new defensive coordinator, does it mean success? And I think it doesn't not mean success, but it doesn't hurt. That's my thing. Like, there could be someone where, yeah, we love Saleh. Cool. We know who he is, what he brings. Let's go look under some other rocks, though, and see, hey, are there some guys that maybe this guy could be really sharp? Because you sit down and talk football with some people. There are a lot of people that I feel like will kind of blow you away. And sometimes there's guys that you have the opportunity to really, develop into a terrific coach. And yeah, you may only have them for, 2-3 years, but that may be the difference between the 49ers winning a Super Bowl and not winning one. So right now it's still a sticky situation because Saleh is not set in stone that he will be the next 49ers defensive coordinator. It's contingent on him not getting a head coaching job elsewhere.
Seems still pretty likely, and we'll see if he gets any more traction with some of the other jobs that he has interviewed for, that he hasn't had second interviews yet, that are still open jobs out there in the NFL world. One thing's clear is the 49ers got an upgrade at defense coordinator with Robert Saleh, and they got someone they trust. They got a really good coach. But this will be a different defense than we saw in 2020, and probably more wrinkles. Robert Saleh is a different coach now. The league has changed, and the league changes quickly. This is a much different league than when these guys got hired originally with the San Francisco 49ers in 2017, and it's even a different league than 2021 when he took over as head coach for the New York Jets, and he had some really nice units on defense with the New York Jets, some really nice pieces as well. But when you look at the pieces the 49ers had in 2020, the last season that Robert Saleh was head or defensive coordinator of the 49ers, there's only 2 guys that are still around. A pretty important 2 guys to have around, but there will be 9 different starters for Robert Saleh than the last time he was here. The only holdovers are Nick Bosa and Fred Warner. Now, I would love to start a defense starting with those 2 superstar defenders, right? And Robert Saleh will, but it's going to be a different team that Robert Saleh inherits. And I think it's still priority number 1 is to build back that ridiculous defensive line that the 49ers ran out there in the 2020 season. You want to get a D Ford opposite of Nick Bosa. You want to add some talent inside that comes somewhere close to what the 49ers had in at least one of Eric Armstead or DeForest Buckner back in Robert Saleh's heyday with the San Francisco 49ers. So it's going to look different. It might be a little bit varied and a little bit updated Robert Saleh defense scheme-wise, but certainly it's going to be a lot different personnel-wise, and I can't wait to see how they put this thing together, and hopefully it doesn't fall through for the 49ers because, like you said, Croc, still curious that they put all their eggs in one basket, but it's looking more and more like now at least they got those eggs, and they'll be making some omelets on defense.
Yeah, and I do want to make it clear, that is not a bad egg basket or a basket to put all your eggs into. Like, I think Robert Saleh is a terrific coach. It's just interesting that's the only direction that they went and didn't look into anything else that for someone who realistically had a chance. And I don't think it has to be somebody that is a first-time defensive coordinator either. And I see that in the chat a little bit like, well, first-time DC doesn't always work. I don't got to be a first-time guy, but just let's look into some other areas.
No, in fact, the thing that I think that surprised me the most, that I was probably most disappointed in from Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers, that they didn't interview the veteran guys. Go interview Lou Anarumo. Go interview Dennis Allen. Just even if it's a fact-finding mission, they talked to Bill Belichick of all people last year. Bill Belichick wasn't going to take a defensive coordinator job, but they talked to him at least. I mean, I think that's a smart way to go about it, is talk to these guys and learn what else could be potentially out there. Learn about, I'm sure you would learn a lot about how they attack you and why they do certain things. And maybe you would learn that, maybe we need to change things up more from what we're doing because teams have too good of an idea how to play against what we've been doing, because they've been doing a similar thing that's changed slowly, but it's not much different what they're doing now than what they were doing 5 years ago. And teams know what to expect when they play the San Francisco 49ers from a scheme perspective on both sides of the ball right now.
I think one thing that people probably don't realize as much, and people have kind of talked about it with, the outsiders, right? Kind of some of the outside noise with a lot of the players that, a quarterback Brock Purdy has kind of at his disposal. There's a lot of firepower. There's a lot of star power. There's a lot of guys that have been all pros. Most teams don't have that. And they don't have that a lot of times on both sides of the ball. So there are some guys, and you might say, oh, this defensive coordinator, well, he sucked over here. He wasn't good on this squad. It's like, well, do the 49ers have better personnel, and are they adding better personnel to help him be a better defensive coordinator? Like, how many guys, like Wilkes got fired, and it's like, oh, he's not this great defensive coordinator. But the 49ers were top 10 in every statistical category for the most part, defensively. Maybe not against the Browns or whatever, but I think the yardage wise, they were top 10. I think the success rate, they weren't. But it's like, hey, he stepped in. That was a very healthy team. He was loaded all over. He ended up being a top 10 coordinator for that season and was still fired, right? So that just lets you know, if they didn't think as highly as him as somebody who's either a fit or is good enough, if you have a talented roster, people can step in and do well. And it's much harder when you don't have all those pieces. So I say all that to say, don't quite judge someone solely on, oh, they were over here last year and it wasn't great, like Aaron Glenn. Oh, Aaron Glenn, how's he getting a head coaching job? That defense was terrible, especially down the stretch. Well, they're missing 15 players that were on IR on just the defense alone, missing the only pass rusher they had in Aiden Hutchinson. It's probably hard to call a defense when you don't have weapons out there. But when you look at 49ers situation, it's probably a little bit more intriguing. Hey, man, got these young corners, just signed Lenore, got this kid, Renardo Green. He looks like a stud. Man, got a couple safeties. We'll see what we could do with them. Maybe we can add a guy. Man, that linebacker position, they got some young guys, got Fred Warner, got Nick Bosa. As much as we kind of scoff at the idea of the edge rushers and we want to get better, we want the edge rushers to get better, I think a lot of teams would be like, well, if I had Nick Bosa, Leonard Floyd, got Gross Matos and some other things, and you can add a defensive tackle in free agency, it's like, that's a pretty loaded defense, right? So the 49ers are a very intriguing spot and probably a better landing spot than a lot of other teams just because of some of the built-in guys that they already have.
Some more news is breaking around this story and around the 49ers and what they're looking at here and what this next chapter is going to look like in the offseason. If indeed Robert Saleh comes back as defensive coordinator, what is next on the docket? What is the priority for the 49ers after they settle their defensive coordinator spot? Next. This episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by Gametime. Love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, comedy shows, theater events. You can find tickets there as well at Gametime. And one of my favorite memories this year was attending a concert, and I've talked about it before. They added a second date, and I said, you know what? I'm going to check the Gametime app, and if they've got a great deal on tickets, I'm going the next night too. And you know what they did? It was half off the ticket price. And so I went the next night as well. It was a phenomenal couple of days. And you can do the same. And if you're a sports fan, you go to events, you go to comedy shows, you go to concerts, you got to have the Gametime app on your phone ready to go. And you get phenomenal deals on last minute tickets as well. And now Gametime has made it even easier to get tickets for your favorite events with their new feature, Gametime Picks. This feature filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets potentially. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. So according to the chat, it's looking like breaking news, and this shouldn't be super shocking, that Nick Sorensen is now out and mutually parting ways with the San Francisco 49ers. We already knew he was out at defensive coordinator. Kyle Shanahan had talked about maybe he was an option at special teams coordinator, but it sounds like that ship has sailed as well. And Tony in the chat relaying that Mayoko he says just skeeted. Does that mean tweeted? I don't know what the kids are saying these days. Mayoko just skeeted that the Niners interviewed the Jets special teams coordinator.
Completely different.
That's what I thought. That's a completely different thing than tweeting. So hopefully, I don't know what Mayoko's up to. It's a weird offseason. I don't know what Mayoko's up to over there. But
you're skeeting on Twitter.
The Niners interviewed the Jets special teams coordinator, which would tie you in and make a lot of perfect sense if they're bringing in Robert Saleh from the Jets. And so there's that story. And then this one from Colin. This is interesting. He says I'm not sure who they is. They said Spytek hasn't signed, and neither side have announced Spytek yet either. That's talking about the GM potentially for the Las Vegas Raiders. So I wonder if the rug could get pulled out from under the Raiders, just like it was the Buccaneers, Tom Brady's last two teams. And all of a sudden Spytek goes with Liam Coen after all and becomes GM of the Jacksonville Jaguars. So I guess that is still on the table as well. And a reminder out there, we're kind of celebrating right now, Robert Saleh potentially coming home as defense coordinator of the 49ers. That's not a done deal yet either. And he could still potentially get a head coach job out there, but it's looking more and more likely Robert Saleh is coming back. And I think you feel like the defense is in good hands. Now you got to address the roster, right, Croc? And I know special teams coordinator is something the 49ers have to figure out as well. But if indeed Robert Saleh is back with the 49ers as defensive coordinator, what's the next priority for you? What's the big thing to check off the list next for the 49ers offseason?
I think you got to get Brock Purdy locked in. And that would be the thing I really dial in and focus on. What do those numbers look like? And get it done before someone else gets signed. And that's what happens a lot of times with the 49ers too. If they would have really tried to hammer out a deal for Brandon Ayuk early in the offseason, like, all right, season ended, let's get this thing locked in, throw this certain number out. Oh man, I'm good with that. Let's go. But instead they waited, tried to lowball it. Then all these other guys started getting signed for 28, 29, $30 million. It's like, well, what do you think he's going to take now? And it made it a much more difficult situation. And I think for Brock Purdy, whatever he's going to get, which I expect it to be, between $58 to $60 million per year, you better get that thing locked in now, because all it takes is a couple guys to sign, and all of a sudden that number starts driving up a little bit. So that would be the first thing that I dial in on if I'm the 49ers.
Does this change the outlook for you for the 49ers in 2025, Croc? And by the way, in the chat, let us know, what do you think is the next big domino that needs to fall for the 49ers? It doesn't have to be the next one that falls, but the biggest thing, like what is the biggest priority for the 49ers offseason now that they've got their coaching staff somewhat figured out here at defensive coordinator? Croc, does this change anything for you? Like, let's say Brandon Staley was going to end up being the next defense coordinator, or like Gus Bradley or somebody, or like, name a retread defensive coordinator, and not Robert Saleh. Are you looking at the 49ers season, whatever else happens, and thinking, okay, I feel better about just the outlook. I feel like you can add a win or two to the over-under win total when we're making picks later on this summer and trying to project what the 49ers are going to be. Does it make that big of a difference for you with Robert Saleh coming back? Because it feels like a huge win with, 24 hours ago thinking, man, the 49ers don't have a plan at defense coordinator if Robert Saleh's gone.
I think it helps definitely put us at ease a little bit with the coordinating position, but where it doesn't quite help, and what I think is potentially going to be an issue, just the health and age of the 49ers. They're just getting older, and I wonder, like, just how much left do these guys have? Like, I said it a segment ago, the 49ers, in comparison to a lot of other teams, had a very loaded roster. When they went to the Super Bowl and the conference championship game back-to-back and all that, loaded roster with star power. And if those star guys who were all pros during those years are now kind of, I'm 37 years old, left tackle coming off of injuries. I'm Christian McCaffrey, older 4A running back coming off of injuries. I'm Brandon Ayuk coming off of an ACL injury. At those positions, the injuries that these guys have and what they're battling against, especially with age, I'm Deebo Samuel, and I continue to not be what I was a year or two ago. That's the thing that worries me more than even whoever the hell the defensive coordinator is.
People are getting wild in the chat here, Croc.
We got everybody excited.
Yeah, a lot of people are agreeing with you about Brock Purdy. That's the big one. Tom says, get Purdy done, then move on to Greenlaw. Purdy and Greenlaw says, Ian. Here's an interesting one, though. Great one says, get the Purdy trade done, not the Purdy contract done.
I'm not going there.
And then Lee says, yeah, bring in Hackett and Lazar for Aaron Rodgers at quarterback for old Bob Saleh. I don't think the New York Jets quarterback plan is in play for Robert Saleh's San Francisco 49ers, or I don't think he would sign on the dotted line to come be defensive coordinator of that squad with the way things have gone over there on offense in New York for him, because he had the defense right, Croc. Like, the defense was championship caliber. They just had some crazy business going on the offensive side of the ball. I wanted to go to where we at here.
Real quick, what do you think about the health of the team? Like, does that worry you at all? Not just the health, right? Typically, guys come back from injuries, they'll be fine. But the age combined with the injuries and how heavily the 49ers are kind of leaning on those guys.
Well, and I've said it, you're going to pay your quarterback a big contract. So thinking that the Niners are going to sign Purdy and then sign Greenlaw and then sign Hufanga and then go get a defensive tackle that can make a difference in free agency, like, that's a pipe dream. I don't think that's going to happen. The 49ers going forward are going to have to draft and develop their own cheap talent. That's where the next stars are going to have to come from for the San Francisco 49ers. So to me, they do have to get younger, and it's almost a necessity that they get younger. They need to get a little faster, and I don't think they can bring everybody back because they are getting a little bit older and slower as a team, and that's what happens. And so it's going to be interesting to see which stars they keep, which ones they don't. A guy like George Kittle, he was my MVP of the 49ers last year. George Kittle, right? He's going into the final year of his contract. It feels like just yesterday he redid his contract, and now he's going into the final year of his contract. So
how old is he? 32, going on 33, maybe?
I think he's 31, going on 32, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm not positive on that one. But the 49ers, the core
31 going on 32, and he turns 32 way later in the season.
Okay, so he's not over the hill yet. He's on the wrong side of 30, but he's not over the hill. He's got another contract in him. I did watch some George Kittle highlights though not long ago, and I was kind of shocked. I remember him being fast. I was shocked how fast he was. he's not quite as fast as he once was. Like, you can see age on George Kittle, and he does get banged up a lot in the way he plays. And, Dre Greenlaw too. I don't, as awesome as Dre Greenlaw is, I don't know if a long-term contract is smart money, because even beyond the Achilles, he's always getting hurt and throwing his body around. He's got armor on all of one entire arm. He's kind of the bionic man out there, and he's an undersized guy in the way he plays, and he plays reckless. And he throws his body around. I don't know if he's going to see the end of whatever next contract he does. So for Greenlaw, if it's not one of those like, okay, I need to prove to the rest of the league I'm going to be healthy for one more year, come back with the 49ers on that type of a deal, I don't know if Greenlaw's in the cards for the San Francisco 49ers. They're going to, they really do need to be healthier and younger and faster as a team. They're going to have to start developing a lot of talent with to go along with a lot of the expensive stars that they do have now on the football team, even the ones that are going to be around for a while, like Nick Bosa and Brock Purdy. And Brandon Ayuk, by the way, coming back next year, and hopefully healthy.
Andre in the chat said, isn't Kelsey 35? Because we're talking about Kittle and getting a little bit older. Even Kelsey, I mean, what were people saying about Kelsey this year? And he came alive in the playoffs, and I expected to see, playoff Trav. But if people are watching this year, they're like, hey, Travis Kelsey's kind of washed, right? Yeah, he was kind of struggling to get open. And even in the playoff game, he caught this ball. He was kind of wide open in the middle of the field. And watching him try to run away from defenders, it was almost painful to see. So, I mean, Kelsey is aging. So, and that goes to, when we look at the 49ers this past season, kind of what they were on the football field and who they were missing and who showed up, who didn't, and whatnot. George Kittle definitely showed up, and he is excellent. How much longer is he going to be excellent? And at pick 11, does a guy like the Warren kid out of Penn State, does he come into play when George Kittle is entering the last year of his contract?
32 is not old, but to put it into perspective, do you remember 32-year-old Randy Moss on the San Francisco 49ers?
Ugh.
That was not the best version of Randy Moss. Like, that's what could start happening to a football player at age 32. And I do think that tight ends can and do age more gracefully potentially than a wide receiver, especially if you're a wide receiver who's built upon like how freaky athletic and fast you are. So I'm not worried about Kittle. I'm not worried about doing another deal with Kittle. And I do think with what George Kittle brings you, it's, tight end money is some of the best money in the NFL because they don't break the bank and they don't make crazy money. And I don't think it's going to be a super long-term contract either for George Kittle. And if he wants to be back, I would absolutely do another deal with Kittle. And who knows, that might be a sneaky deal. The 49ers extend him this offseason too.
He feels like a lifetime 49er.
I hope so. He's the best tight end in 49ers history. And he's a wall of fame type of a guy.
I wonder at what point, right? You're turning 32, last year of your contract. He has endorsements, probably made a lot of money. I wonder at what point do you just say, you know what, got this beautiful wife, got an amazing compound, a house out there in Tennessee. I'm just gonna retire at the age of 32 and start my family and kids and just kind of enjoy being away from football and maybe do some spot stuff on wrestling. I could see him on TV. Like Kittle, you don't have to continue to beat your body up the way you are. He's definitely beat up. He's going to be beat up when he retires. I was like, I don't think you have to beat your body up more. And Kittle's someone, because I love watching this version of him, I don't want to know what like old version of Kittle looks like. Like I want to remember Kittle for this. Oh man, at 31 years old, I was all pro, 1,000-yard pass catcher. And at 32, I did the same thing, but all right, let's see you right off into the sunset and do some WWE stuff. Yeah,
that's what Patrick Willis did, and I respect it. He's like, man, I wanted to wow people when I'm out there on the football field. And with the injuries, I realized I was gonna start not being that guy, and he walked away. I can totally respect that, but I can also respect if you want to hang on to the bitter end and play the entire string out as long as you can in the league. And so, and George Kittle is just definitely, a heart and soul player for the 49ers. So the last guy I'm chasing out of the building is George Kittle. That's for sure. I think this is a topic for another episode, Croc, but a lot of focus on defense today. Lee drops this bomb on us, says the 49ers averaged less than 20 points a game in losses last season. Maybe just score more. So he's still worried about the offense and not so much who the defensive coordinator is.
Well, you know me. What was I saying all of 2023 season?
Yeah.
I was putting it on the offense in a lot of those losses. And even you go to the Super Bowl, hey, you got 19 points in regulation. Come on. You got a star-studded group of guys. You got especially that year, right? You got healthy Kittle, healthy Debo, healthy Ayuk, CMC, healthy in the postseason. You got Trent Williams out there. You got to score more than 19 in the postseason. And that happened this year as well. Not being great, offensively. I think a little bit more understandably so with the injuries that the 49ers faced. But you got a little bit more of a taste of reality with what guys around the league are kind of dealing with offensively with some of the weapons. I still think they had guys out there. We talked about Kittle being an all-pro. Juwan Jennings stepped up in a major way. Loved the way that Pearsall started to come on a little bit later in the season. So I think, with that, you would still like them to be a little better offensively. And I think that's something that the 49ers have to look into because injuries are always going to happen. It is very rare you just have like the perfect roster year in, year out. You're not always going to be loaded. You're going to have injuries. If you look at these teams, I mean, who the hell is Jaden Daniels throwing to? Like old ass Ertz is like Brian Peacock's age. and Terry McLaurin, and like that's it. And then they're handing the ball off to McNichols, buddy. That was a like 49er practice squad running back.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Look, the 2023 49ers aren't coming back offensively with and all the injury luck they had. That was their best chance when we're talking Super Bowl window, but they can continue to get younger and better. They got to hit on a lot of draft picks, and as some of these guys age out, because they still have a lot of really good older players that are still valuable players and still really good players. They might not be around in 2027, but they're around in 2025. And so it's a balancing act of getting younger and faster and hitting on some draft picks as they transition into that Brock Purdy-led era with a whole new group and a new cast. But as of right now, Robert Saleh back as defensive coordinator, pending another head coaching job that pops up for him. We'll be back Monday. Might know more on that situation and a whole lot more. We'll do some more Q&As in the offseason, breaking down draft prospects as well. So stick around right here every single day. Subscribe. Locked On 49ers.